Okay, where we left off last time is we talked about boring, right, and tapering, and I asked Jake if he wouldn't mind if we use his work as our training today, and Jake does beautiful work as always. So this is on this piano. This isn't the piano that we measured, right? The piano that we measured the other day was the piano that Victoria is working on, right? And this is different altogether, but it's principles apply. So there's a beautiful taper. Ready to see that? Did you use the table saw?
No, I kind of wanted to.
Oh, okay. It's still. Did you use the sander?
Yeah.
Okay, it's still a beautiful taper. Oh yeah. Now that you mention that, I see that's the problem with the sander, is it leaves the back of the felt a little bit dirty. But yeah, beautiful taper. We've got beautiful collar in there. That's what it's supposed to look like. Remember, like Lewis's socks. See that? That's what it's supposed to look like. Yeah, that is a nice collar. And from what I can tell, he did a beautiful job hanging these hammers, because if it looks good, it sounds good, as we've talked about many times. So what we're going for is we want to be able to sight over the top of the hammers when the hammers are installed on the action. We want to be able to sight down that stack, and everything, just the top here on all the hammers, the top should just perfectly line up, and then the top of the felt should just perfectly line up, and then they should be properly spaced. Although that'll kind of, I mean, that's partly in gluing, because you want to be sure that you're gluing it 90 degrees to the hammer butt, right? Not this way or that way. So if the hammer butt is like that, right? I've seen people compensate for strike point issues, or particularly in the bass, because the bass is at a diagonal. And so if you want that strike point to be correct on the bass, but you're matching the height with the top one, then the temptation is to turn it one way or the other, right? Because since the strings are on a diagonal this way, if it's too high, right, then your strike point is going to be up here. But if you tilt it this way, then it'll have the strike point correct, right? But when the correct solution is, okay, well, we were hoping to have it all the same height, but in this case we're just going to have to shorten the bass a little bit, right? So it brings it down. So strike point is, so it's 90 degrees there, and the strike point is right on these two strings, okay? But I'm getting ahead of myself, because we're not dealing with that quite yet. Okay, so Jake did a beautiful job. We'll see once it's installed just how beautiful it is, but the tapers look great. The angles here look great. From what I can tell, we've got try and do this without spilling any hammers. The back of the hammer is pushed up against this straight edge here, right? But not putting pressure on it, because what happens when we put pressure? It'll flex. Every single time it will flex. So just barely, you just want it like kissing it, just barely touching, right? And then same thing here. You want this upper corner here, because it's at an angle, it'll just be the corner. Those won't be, because these don't have an angle bore. So you'll have the entire hammer, right, touching the straight edge here. But since see what I'm talking about? But since these bass hammers are bored in an angle, it's just this top corner right there. Sorry.
The whole thing this way.
What? Okay. So it's just the top corner that we want, again, just kissing the straight edge. If it's anything more than that, as soon as you remove it from the jig, it will flex, and then your glue, it'll be stuck, and so then you have a choice. to either leave it and have an imperfect job, which, you know, we definitely do sometimes. Unfortunately, you know, if it's like bad enough to bother us, but not bad enough to cause any problems, you know, we just kind of got to live with it. But hopefully that's a rare occurrence. Or if it's bad enough, we just have to redo them. We just have to pop off these hammers and do it again. One convenient thing about grand hammers is that we have that tool that just pops the hammers right off. So if we make a mistake with hanging grand hammers, it's not that hard to just pop them off and redo it. But with upright hammers, it's a different story. You're kind of stuck. You have to rebore. You cut it off and, you know, cut that hammer off and rebore and try again. So hopefully we avoid that. Another thing, and this is really important, so everybody pay attention. These shanks, when you put them in this is something that we discovered. This is a flaw in this jig, I think. When you put them in these little notches, these little grooves here, if you push it down a little bit harder,
Don't push.
right, don't push. If you push it on one side or the other, it makes a big difference in the angle of the shank. Okay, so you just want to kind of set it in there, and that's it.
No touch.
Yeah, no touch. Good.
Ever so gently, just.
That's right, ever so gently just set it in there. So, let's see.
I have a question on
Yeah.
boring
Okay,
that we've been dealing with. Is that angle on the base is so much that you need to start your bore on one side of the
oh yeah, so because the angle, yeah, right,
How do you figure out?
just like that.
Yeah. So when you go to bore it, so that it doesn't poke through
To the other side. Yeah, you have
do
to
you just
start.
eyeball it, or how do you?
And that's in part why we start with sacrificial hammers, so we can figure stuff out like that. But also it takes some experience. As you can see with this hammer, they've pushed this shank all the way over to that side.
Right.
That's basically as far as it would go. If they pushed it any further, it would interfere with the side of the hammer.
So I guess you could look at the hammer, so you're duplicating and see what they did, and
Yeah.
hopefully that'll line them up the way that they had them.
The other thing I would recommend is don't go crazy with your taper. If you taper it, just stay conservative. Just taper it a little bit. That'll give you plenty of clearance. But if you taper it a lot, that really,
Taper it too much.
yeah. If you taper it a lot, that narrows the overall back of the hammer so much that it just gives you nothing to play with.
What if, well, I did the boring on the other one on Monday.
Yeah.
But what comes first, tapering or boring?
Boring.
Oh, okay.
Then you want to watch that when you taper it, you're not going into your bore,
Yeah.
so that you leave a big hole.
Yeah.
Guessing.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's good. That's a good point. So I guess you kind of have to determine ahead of time. Okay, where am I going to put the shank on my bore, and how much space does that then allow me to taper? Yeah, that's a good point. All right. So I would recommend when you do this, Jake did just a beautiful job, it looks like. But I would recommend having, well, I guess the knurling, it kind of squeezes everybody know what the knurling is?
It
Knurling
kind of
is
squeezes
mm-hmm.
the shank.
So you can set the knurl depth right here. So that's, obviously gonna. That might be too much. Yeah, it's too much.
Another thing that I've found about these shanks is the grain direction that you go.
Okay, yeah. Talk about grain direction.
So when you glue the hammers, you want the grain to be going this direction.
Good. And why is that?
It's less prone to breaking
Good.
too.
Good.
And I've forgotten to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times now.
So everybody know what he's talking about?
The wood grain and
Yeah. If you look at the grain, you see the line in there. So you want the grain direction to be in that direction, not up and down.
Like that.
I don't know, I'm blind. Yeah.
Well, and that actually reminds me of another thing that is something to be aware of. Is it's a good idea to roll the shanks.
make sure they're good.
Make sure they're straight, because not all of these are straight. See if we
Not
can-
all of them are straight. That's the first thing I do when I pull shanks
If they're not
out.
straight, it'll look like they're wiggling.
I mean, this one has a little bit of a bend to it. It doesn't roll very well, and if you kind of push down on one side, you can see that on some of the rotations it's lifted up
Yeah.
on that side. Yeah, that one's not so bad. That one you could go either way. There are some that I'm looking for one that's just like really bad.
Really bad. That would, my guess would be that would,
Yeah,
like that one would,
that one is one that you could.
that would affect the way it strikes.
That's pretty messed up there. You know, if you get too much, it'll ooze out everywhere. If you get too little, you won't get a collar. Okay.
I usually don't use the shank for my collar.
Okay, how do you do it?
So what I like to do, I don't have a dummy hammer with me, but
Okay.
but anyway, I'll just get plenty of glue like that,
Okay.
and then put the hammer in,
Okay.
and turn it.
And turn it. All right. Cool.
That's just the way I do it.
No, that's good. Well, that's it's working.
But it's work.
Yeah.
It works.